The Galactic Council chamber was quiet. 300 alien species sat in their seats, discussing trade routes and border disputes. The massive dome above them showed the stars of their capital world. Everything was normal until the alarm started screaming. "Unknown vessels emerging from hyperspace," announced the security chief, his 4 arms moving quickly over his control panel. "They are human ships." The council members looked up. Through the transparent dome, they could see the human fleet dropping out of hyperspace. But something was wrong. These were not the clean, silver ships they had seen in their files about Earth. These ships were covered in dark stains. Red and purple liquids dripped from their hulls. Pieces of alien flesh hung from their weapon ports. Some ships had long scratches down their sides, as if giant claws had tried to tear them open. Ambassador Zektar stood up, his blue scales turning pale. "What happened to them? Are they under attack?" The human ships moved slowly toward the council station. They looked like they had flown through hell itself. The largest ship, which had UES Freedom painted on its side, was missing huge chunks of armor. Something green and slimy covered its bridge windows. "They are requesting permission to dock," said the communications officer, her voice shaking. "The lead ship's captain wants to address the council." Council leader Varanox waved his tentacles nervously. "Grant them permission, but increase security. Those ships, they look like they've been through a massacre." 20 minutes later, the council doors opened. Captain Jake Harrison walked in, followed by 6 other humans. Their uniforms were torn and stained. Jake had a bandage around his head and dried blood on his face. His crew looked exhausted, with dark circles under their eyes. The aliens in the council chamber gasped. Some moved back in their seats. The humans looked like they had been fighting for days without rest. Jake stopped in the center of the chamber. He stood straight, despite his obvious fatigue. His gray eyes moved across the alien faces, seeing their fear and confusion. "Members of the Galactic Council," Jake began, his voice rough. "I am Captain Jake Harrison of the United Earth Ship Freedom. We have come here directly from battle." "Battle?" asked Varanox. "With whom? Who did this to your ships?" Jake reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. He pressed a button, and images appeared in the air above him. The council members leaned forward to look. The images showed massive black ships firing on human vessels. They showed alien creatures with razor-sharp teeth and claws, tearing through ship corridors. They showed human soldiers fighting desperately against an enemy that seemed unstoppable. "The Zarkonians," Jake said simply. The council chamber erupted in whispers. Everyone knew about the Zarkonians. They were one of the oldest spacefaring races, powerful and mysterious. No one challenged them. Ambassador Crix spoke up, her feathers ruffling with concern. "But the Zarkonians are a peaceful species. They told us so themselves." Jake's face hardened. "Peaceful? They'd been committing genocide for centuries. They target species that haven't achieved spaceflight yet. They wipe them out before they can join the galactic community." "That's impossible," said Counselor Mector. "We would have known." "Would you?" Jake asked. "How many dead worlds have you found, and simply assumed they failed naturally? How many species never made it to the stars because the Zarkonians got to them first?" The human captain touched another button on his device. New images appeared. These showed planet after planet, all dead and lifeless. Then came the evidence. Zarkonian ships in orbit, deploying weapons that turned entire worlds into ash. "They were coming for Earth next," Jake continued. "We found their plans. We asked for your help, remember? 6 months ago, we presented this evidence to your security committee." Several council members looked uncomfortable. They remembered the human delegation's visit. "You told us it was an internal matter," Jake said, his voice growing harder. "You said the council doesn't interfere, so we had to handle it ourselves." He gestured toward the dome, where the blood-stained human ships floated like wounded beasts. "That's Zarkonian blood on our ships," Jake explained. We didn't clean it off because we wanted you to see. We wanted you to understand what we had to do to survive." The council sat in stunned silence, staring at the battered human fleet and the exhausted crew before them. 6 months before the bloodied fleet arrived at the Galactic Council, everything changed for humanity. Admiral Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the UES Titan, staring at the data on her screen. Her hands shook as she read the intercepted Zarkonian messages. "Are you certain about this translation?" she asked her intelligence officer. Lieutenant Peter Ross nodded grimly. "We've checked it 5 times, Admiral. The Zarkonians have a list. Earth is on it. Where next?" Lisa felt cold. The list contained the names of 57 planets. All were home to intelligent species that hadn't developed faster than light travel yet. Beside each name was a date. Beside the completed dates were 2 words that made her sick. "Cleansing complete. 57 civilizations," she whispered. "They killed them all." "The evidence is overwhelming," Peter replied. "We found their archive during a routine patrol near the Kepler system. They document everything. They're proud of it." Lisa turned to her second-in-command, Commander Ryan Miller. "How long do we have?" Ryan checked his tablet. "According to their schedule, the Zarkonian fleet will reach Earth in 8 months. Their previous operations show they need only 3 days to eliminate all life on a planet. We need to inform the Galactic Council immediately," Lisa decided. 2 weeks later, humanity's delegation stood before the Galactic Council's Security Committee. Ambassador Gregory Lane presented their evidence with growing frustration as the alien committee members seemed uninterested. "The Zarkonians are valued members of this council," said Committee Chair Bractor, his 6 eyes blinking slowly. "These accusations are serious. Do you have proof they actually carried out these alleged cleansings?" Gregory activated the holographic display. "We have video evidence from their own ships, sensor data showing dead worlds, their own written records describing the extermination process in detail." "Perhaps there was a misunderstanding in translation," suggested member Velax. "The Zarkonians speak a complex language." "There's no misunderstanding," Gregory said firmly. "They call it preemptive pest control. They believe species like humans are parasites that will eventually threaten galactic stability." Committee Chair Bractor waved a dismissive tentacle. "The Council has a strict non-interference policy. We cannot act on speculation about future events." "Speculation?" Gregory's voice rose. "They have a date set for Earth's destruction. October 15th. That's 6 months from now." "The Zarkonians have been council members for 3,000 years, said member Kalox. "Humans have been in space for barely 50. Perhaps you misunderstand their intentions." Gregory slammed his hand on the table. "They're planning to murder 10 billion people." "The Council will monitor the situation," Bractor said calmly. "If the Zarkonians actually move against Earth, we will convene an emergency session to discuss possible diplomatic solutions." Diplomatic solutions? Gregory couldn't believe what he was hearing. "By then it will be too late. The matter is closed," Bractor announced. "The Council will not take preemptive action based on intercepted communications." Back on Earth, the emergency session of the United Earth Government lasted 12 hours. President Maria Santos listened as military leaders, scientists, and diplomats argued about their options. "The Council won't help us," reported Ambassador Lane via hologram. Several members hinted that the Zarkonians have influence over Council decisions. Some might even support their actions. General Paul Foster spoke next. "Our military analysis is complete. If we wait for the Zarkonians to attack Earth, we lose. They have superior technology and overwhelming numbers. Our only chance is to strike first." "That would make us the aggressors," warned Secretary of State Helen Cooper. Dr. Emma White, Earth's leading xenobiologist, stood up. "I studied the Zarkonian biological data we retrieved. They have a critical weakness. Their organic ship components are vulnerable to a specific enzyme compound. We can weaponize it." Dr. John Baker, her colleague, added, "We've already begun production. But we'd need to get close enough to deploy it. That means taking the fight to them. President Santos looked around the room at the faces of Earth's leaders. So our choices are wait to die, or attack first, and maybe survive. That's exactly right, Madam President. Admiral Carter confirmed. Maria closed her eyes. The weight of 10 billion lives rested on her decision. When she opened them again, her face was set with determination. Begin preparations for Operation First Strike, she ordered. If the Council won't protect developing civilizations, then humanity will. The United Earth Government building in Geneva buzzed with activity. Military officers rushed through corridors carrying classified folders. Scientists huddled in corners, discussing weapon specifications. Everyone knew humanity faced its darkest hour. President Maria Santos stood before the joint session of Earth's leaders. Representatives from every nation filled the assembly hall. Their faces showed fear, determination, and doubt in equal measure. We are here to finalize our response to the Zarkonian threat, Maria began. You've all seen the evidence. You know what's coming. The question is not whether we fight, but how. Senator James Park from the North American Union raised his hand. Madam President, attacking first goes against everything humanity claims to stand for. We've always defended ourselves, never been the aggressors. The Zarkonians have already decided to kill us, Maria replied. They made us the enemy. We're just choosing the battlefield. Chancellor Erich Müller from the European Federation stood up. What about evacuating Earth? Spreading humanity across the galaxy. Admiral Lisa Carter answered from her seat. We don't have enough ships. At best, we could evacuate maybe 1 million people. That leaves 9.99 billion to die. And where would we go? Added General Yuki Tanaka from the Asian Alliance. The Council won't protect us. Other worlds won't risk Zarkonian anger by sheltering human refugees. In the underground laboratories beneath New Mexico, Dr. Emma White worked 18-hour days. Her team of scientists developed the biological weapon that might save humanity. The enzyme compound they created would dissolve Zarkonian organic technology, turning their greatest strength into weakness. We call it the dissolving agent, Emma explained to the military observers. When it contacts Zarkonian biotechnology, it breaks down the molecular bonds. Their ships, their weapons, even their cybernetic implants will literally melt. What about testing? Asked Colonel Robert Taylor. Dr. John Baker pulled up holographic models. We've run 10,000 simulations using the Zarkonian biological samples. Success rate is 97%, but we won't know for certain until we use it in battle. And if it doesn't work? Robert pressed. Emma and John exchanged glances. Then humanity dies, Emma said simply. Across Earth, families prepared for what might be goodbye forever. Captain Jake Harrison ate dinner with his wife Sarah and their 2 children. Daddy, why do you have to go? Asked 6-year-old Lucy. Jake hugged his daughter. Because sometimes we have to protect the people we love, even if it's scary. Will you come back? His son Tommy asked. Jake looked at Sarah. Her eyes were wet with tears, but she nodded encouragingly. I'll do everything I can to come home, he promised. Similar scenes played out in millions of homes. Parents explained to children. Couples held each other. Grandparents passed down family stories, fearing they might be the last to remember them. Commander Ryan Miller addressed the assembled fleet crews in the largest hangar on Luna Base. 50,000 men and women in uniform stood at attention. You all volunteered for this mission, Ryan said, his voice carrying across the vast space. You know the odds. Half of us probably won't return. But if we don't go, none of us will survive. He paused, looking at the young faces before him. The Zarkonians think humans are weak. They think we're just another primitive species to exterminate. Today, we proved them wrong. A young pilot, Lieutenant Sam Davis, raised his voice. What makes us different from all the species they've already killed? Ryan smiled grimly. Those species were alone. They had no warning. We know what's coming, And we choose to meet it head-on. We're not victims waiting for execution. We're warriors defending our home. President Santos signed the final authorization at midnight. Operation First Strike was officially approved. In 6 hours, humanity's entire space fleet would launch toward Zarkonian space. May history forgive us, Maria whispered as she set down the pen. General Foster placed a hand on her shoulder. History can't judge us if there's no one left to write it. You made the only choice that gives us a chance. As Earth slept, ships began launching from hidden bases. Humanity's greatest gamble had begun. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Zarkonian territory. 200 ships faced an armada 3 times their size. The Zarkonian vessels looked like massive creatures rather than machines. Their hulls pulsed with organic matter, tentacles of living metal reaching out into space. Captain Jake Harrison gripped his command chair as the UES Freedom shook from the first enemy salvo. All ships, deploy the dissolving agent on my mark, he ordered through the fleet communication system. The Zarkonians attacked without warning or communication. Beams of purple energy sliced through space, cutting human ships in half. The UES Liberty exploded in a ball of fire, taking 300 crew members with it. Return fire. Admiral Lisa Carter commanded from the UES Titan. Target their command vessels. Human railguns and plasma cannons lit up the darkness. But Zarkonian bioarmor absorbed most hits, healing damage within seconds. For every Zarkonian ship destroyed, humanity lost 3. Captain Steve Johnson prepared his boarding team on the UES Warrior. Remember, their ships are alive. Expect walls that bleed, corridors that shift, and defenses we can't imagine. His team of 200 Marines loaded their weapons with special ammunition containing the dissolving agent. They knew this was a suicide mission, but someone had to test the weapon up close. Launching boarding pods, Steve shouted as his ship passed a Zarkonian dreadnought. 20 pods shot across space, drilling into the enemy hull. Steve's pod punched through layers of organic armor before coming to rest in what looked like a stomach. The walls pulsed red and purple, dripping acidic fluid. Move, move, Steve ordered as his Marines cut their way out. The corridor they entered was a nightmare. Fleshy walls sprouted teeth and claws, trying to grab the humans. The floor tried to swallow their boots. The ceiling dripped acid that ate through armor. Lieutenant Amy Turner fired her weapon, spraying dissolving agent on the walls. The effect was immediate. The organic matter bubbled and melted, turning into green soup that ran down the corridor. It works, Amy shouted. The weapon works. But the Zarkonians adapted quickly. Warrior drones emerged from the walls. Creatures that were part machine, part monster. They had 6 arms ending in energy weapons and mouths full of rotating metal teeth. The fighting turned brutal. Marines used knives when their guns ran empty. They threw grenades filled with dissolving agent. Blood, both human and alien, painted the corridors. Steve's team fought their way to what looked like a command center. Inside, they found something that made them stop in horror. The walls were covered with trophies, pieces of dead civilizations, fragments of cities, preserved corpses, recorded screams of dying worlds. My God, Amy whispered. They keep souvenirs. In the center sat the Zarkonian commander, a creature merged with its ship. Cables grew from its skull into the ceiling. Its eyes were black pools that showed no emotion. Humans, it spoke directly into their minds. Primitive mammals, you dare attack the Eternal Fleet. Steve raised his weapon. You were coming to kill us all. We just got here first. The creature laughed, a sound like breaking glass. You delay the inevitable. Earth will burn like the others. Not if we burn you first, Steve replied, firing his entire magazine of dissolving agent. The commander screamed as its body began to melt. The screams spread through the ship as the bioneural network carried the agent everywhere. Walls dissolved. Floors liquefied. The mighty dreadnought began eating itself. Everyone out. Now, Steve ordered. Outside, the battle had turned. Human ships deployed the dissolving agent in massive clouds. Zarkonian vessels flew into the clouds and emerged as dissolving hulks. Their organic technology, their greatest advantage, became their doom. But victory came at terrible cost. The UES Lincoln exploded, taking Admiral Patterson with it. The UES Independence crashed into a Zarkonian cruiser, both ships dying together. Captain Phillips of the UES Defiant made a suicide run, ramming the enemy flagship. When the battle ended, half the human fleet was gone. The survivors were battered, bleeding, covered in the remains of their enemies. But the Zarkonian fleet was completely destroyed. "We did it," Jake said quietly, looking at the graveyard of ships. "God help us, we actually did it." The battle was over, but the horror remained. Human ships drifted among the melting remains of the Zarkonian fleet. Green and purple sludge floated in space where mighty warships once ruled. The surviving crews stood at their posts, exhausted and shaken. Captain Jake Harrison surveyed the damage on the UES Freedom. Half his bridge crew was dead. The ship's hull was torn open in 12 places. Emergency force fields kept the air in, but they flickered dangerously. "Damage report," Jake asked quietly. Lieutenant Carol Martinez checked her console with one arm. The other hung useless at her side. 47% of the fleet destroyed. 28% heavily damaged. "We lost 18,000 people, Captain." Jake closed his eyes. 18,000 lives. 18,000 families who would get terrible news. On the UES Warrior, Captain Steve Johnson helped carry wounded Marines to the medical bay. His boarding team had succeeded, but at horrible cost. Of the 200 Marines who went in, only 78 returned. "Did we do the right thing?" asked Private Kevin Phillips. The young Marine had lost his best friend in the Zarkonian ship. Steve put a hand on Kevin's shoulder. They were coming to kill everyone on Earth. Every child, every parent, every single human. We stopped them. "But we struck first," Kevin said. "Doesn't that make us the bad guys?" "Sometimes there are no good guys," Steve replied. "Just people trying to survive." In the medical bay, Dr. Patricia Lee worked on the wounded. She had already performed 30 surgeries without rest. The Zarkonian weapons had done terrible things to human bodies. Some wounds seemed to be eating the flesh around them. "Doctor, this patient's wounds are spreading," called Nurse Tony Adams. Patricia rushed over. The soldier's arm had been hit by Zarkonian bioweapon. The wound was growing, consuming healthy tissue. "Amputate immediately," Patricia ordered. "We can't let it spread to his chest." Throughout the fleet, similar scenes played out. The Zarkonians had used weapons designed to cause maximum suffering. Even in victory, humanity paid a terrible price. Admiral Lisa Carter called a fleet conference. The holographic images of surviving captains appeared around her command table. Many were bandaged. All looked exhausted. "We've won the battle," Lisa began. "But our ships are in no condition for another fight. We're covered in Zarkonian biological matter. Our hulls are compromised. Half our weapons are destroyed." Commander Frank Davis spoke up. "Admiral, should we return to Earth for repairs?" Lisa shook her head. "No. We go to the Galactic Council. Now." "Admiral." Frank looked confused. "Our ships are barely holding together." "Exactly," Lisa said. "I want the Council to see what we had to do, what their inaction forced us to become. We're going to arrive at their doorstep, covered in enemy blood." Captain Jake Harrison understood immediately. "You want to make a statement." "More than that," Lisa replied. "I want them to see the cost of their neutrality. Maybe next time they'll act before another species has to make this choice." The fleet began the slow journey to Council space. Engineers worked around the clock to keep the ships flying. They deliberately left the Zarkonian remains on the hulls. The green and purple stains served as evidence. During the journey, crew members struggled with what they had done. Chaplain Susan Brooks held services for the dead and counseled the living. "We're not murderers," she told a group of grieving pilots. "We're defenders. The Zarkonians gave us no choice. But we attacked them in their home space, said pilot George Chen. We killed them all. They had already decided to kill us all, Susan reminded him. We just chose not to die quietly. Commander Ryan Miller walked through his ship, checking on the crew. He found gunner Beth Young crying at her station. I've never killed anyone before, Beth said. I joined the fleet to explore, not to destroy. None of us wanted this, Ryan said gently. But sometimes the universe forces terrible choices on us. We chose to live. As the battered fleet approached Council space, the crews prepared themselves. They would face judgment for their actions. They would have to explain why humanity had chosen violence over extinction. Captain Jake Harrison stood in the center of the Galactic Council chamber. The alien delegates stared at him and his battered crew. Some covered their breathing organs in disgust at the smell of Zarkonian remains that clung to the humans' uniforms. The Zarkonians are gone, Jake announced. His voice was steady despite his exhaustion. We destroyed their entire fleet. The council erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages. Universal translators struggled to keep up with the noise. Order. Order. Council leader Varanox banged his ceremonial staff. Captain Harrison, are you saying humanity committed genocide? Jake's jaw tightened. No, we prevented one. The Zarkonians were coming to exterminate every human on Earth. We showed you the evidence 6 months ago. You chose to do nothing. He pressed a button on his device. New holographic images filled the chamber. They showed the trophy rooms his Marines had found in Zarkonian ships, preserved bodies of extinct species, recorded death screams, pieces of dead civilizations kept as souvenirs. This is what we found, Jake continued. The Zarkonians kept trophies from every species they destroyed. 57 civilizations wiped out. And you knew. Ambassador Crix's feathers turned pale. We didn't know about the trophies. But you knew about the extinctions, Jake pressed. You just chose to ignore them. Ambassador Kate Williams stepped forward. Her diplomatic training barely contained her anger. The Galactic Council failed in its most basic duty, protecting developing civilizations. When we came to you for help, you told us it was an internal matter. Council member Bractor shifted uncomfortably. The Council has policies. We cannot interfere based on speculation. Kate laughed bitterly. Speculation. They had a date set for Earth's destruction. They had already killed billions of sentient beings. What more evidence did you need? The Zarkonians were senior council members, protested Delegate Bellax. They had been part of this body for 3 millennia. We trusted them. Captain Jake activated another hologram. This one showed decoded Zarkonian communications. Then explain this. Messages between Zarkonian commanders and certain council members. Bribes. Threats. Promises to look the other way. Several council members suddenly became very interested in their datapads. Others looked genuinely shocked. Elder Excel Naga, the oldest member of the council, slowly stood. Her ancient voice carried clearly through the chamber. I have lived for 800 years. I have seen many species join this council. The humans are right. We knew. The chamber fell silent. We suspected the Zarkonians were eliminating pre-spaceflight civilizations. Naga continued. But they were powerful. They were useful. They kept order in their sector. So we chose not to investigate too closely. You let them commit genocide because it was convenient. Jake's voice was ice-cold. Yes, Selnaga admitted. We thought it better to maintain stability than risk confronting them. We were cowards. Council leader Varanox looked uncomfortable. That's a harsh assessment, Elder. Is it? Selnaga gestured toward the humans. These people, barely 50 years in space, did what we were too frightened to do for 3,000 years. They risked everything to stop monsters we pretended were colleagues. Ambassador Zektar spoke up. But they attacked first. They violated our principles of non-aggression. Jake stepped forward. Your principles would have let 10 billion humans die. Your principles allowed 57 genocides. Maybe your principles need updating. The evidence continued to pile up. Financial records showing Zarkonian influence over council votes. Intelligence reports buried in bureaucracy. Warnings from extinct species that were classified and ignored. The council votes on everything, said Delegate Mektor weakly. The Zarkonians must have had allies among us. They did. Kate Williams confirmed. Our investigation identified 12 council members who took Zarkonian bribes. Would you like me to name them? Several delegates quickly excused themselves from the chamber. Elder Xelnaga spoke again. The humans have shown us an ugly truth. While we debated and deliberated, evil flourished. While we valued order over justice, civilizations died. The blood on their ships is our shame. The council chamber fell into stunned silence as the full weight of their failure became clear. The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy. 3 hours had passed since the humans revealed the truth about the Zarkonians. Now, 300 delegates prepared to vote on humanity's fate. Council leader Varanox stood at his podium, his tentacles trembling slightly. We must decide. Should humanity face sanctions for their preemptive attack? Or should we recognize their actions as justified? Delegate Krathor from the Regelian Empire spoke first. The humans violated our most sacred law. They attacked first. They must be punished, or chaos will rule. Chaos already ruled, countered Elder Xelnaga. We just pretended not to see it. The humans ended chaos. They stopped killers we were too afraid to confront. Ambassador Plex Nil raised a crystalline hand. But if we approve their actions, won't other species use this as excuse for violence? Jake Harrison stepped forward. With respect, there's a difference between attacking the innocent and stopping those who do. We didn't want this fight. We beg you for help. You forced us to choose between extinction and action. Delegate Vortek examined his datapad. The evidence is troubling. I found records showing the Zarkonians infiltrated our security systems. They knew about every investigation before it started. They had moles in our intelligence division. More than moles, Kate Williams added. They had a vote-trading network. They supported certain proposals in exchange for looking the other way on their activities. Check your own voting records. Several delegates began reviewing their past votes, looking uncomfortable as patterns emerge. Council member Zet Eris spoke up. I realize now that I voted against 3 separate investigations into missing colonies in Zarkonian space. They always had convincing explanations. Natural disasters, solar flares, plague outbreaks. All lies, Jake said simply. Those colonies were test runs. The Zarkonians were perfecting their extermination methods. Elder Xelnaga stood again. I call for a different vote. Not whether to punish humanity, but whether to thank them. They did our job. They protected the innocent when we wouldn't. That's not the motion before us. Varnox protested. Then I make a new motion, Xelnaga declared. I move that humanity be offered full membership in the Galactic Council, effective immediately. The chamber exploded in debate. Full membership usually took centuries to achieve. Humanity had been in space for only 50 years. Delegate Quarex objected. They're too young, too violent. They need centuries of observation first. Too violent. Kate Williams stepped forward. We used violence once to save ourselves and others. The Zarkonians used it 57 times to commit genocide, which is worse. Ambassador Dexol, whose species had achieved spaceflight just 20 years ago, spoke quietly. My people might have been next on the Zarkonian list. The humans saved us without even knowing we existed. How can we punish them for that? One by one, younger species began speaking up. Many realized they could have been targets. The mood in the chamber shifted. Council leader Varnox sensed the change. Very well. We'll vote on Elder Xelnaga's motion. All in favor of granting humanity full council membership. Lights began turning green across the chamber. First a few, then dozens, then hundreds. When the count finished, 218 delegates had voted yes. Opposed. 82 lights turned red, mostly from older species who valued tradition over justice. The motion passes, Varnox announced. Humanity is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Council. Jake felt tears in his eyes. They had come expecting judgment, maybe even war. Instead, they found understanding. Elder Xelnaga approached the human delegation. You've awakened our conscience. For too long, we've chosen comfort over courage. No more. What about the corrupt council members? Kate asked. Investigations begin tomorrow, Varnox promised. Every Zarkonian connection will be exposed. Every buried report will be reviewed. The age of looking away is over. Jake nodded. And the other developing civilizations? The ones still at risk? Xelnaga smiled for the first time. Perhaps you could help us establish new protection protocols. It seems humanity understands the value of defending those who can't defend themselves. 6 months after the bloodied ships arrived at the Galactic Council, everything had changed. The Great Assembly Hall now displayed a new emblem alongside the ancient symbols, Earth's blue sphere surrounded by stars. Captain Jake Harrison stood in the council chamber, but this time he wore a different uniform. As head of the new Rapid Response Force, he commanded ships from 12 different species. His mission: never let another genocide happen. President Maria Santos addressed the full council via hologram from Earth. Humanity accepts membership with one condition: we will not stand by while innocents die. The council must act when civilizations face extinction. The protection protocols are already approved, Council Leader Varnox confirmed. His voice carried new strength. The investigations had removed 40 corrupt members, including himself nearly stepping down before being cleared. Ambassador Kate Williams, now serving as chair of the Defense Committee, presented the new structure. Any member can call for intervention when genocide threatens. Investigation teams deploy within 24 hours. If the threat is confirmed, the Rapid Response Force acts immediately. Several alien ships join Jake's fleet each week. Young officers from species the Zarkonians might have targeted next volunteered eagerly. The blood-stained human vessels had become symbols of hope rather than fear. In the shipyards above Earth, engineers studied Zarkonian technology carefully. Dr. Emma White led the research teams, learning from enemy innovations while rejecting their cruelty. Their organic technology was remarkable, she explained to alien scientists. But they used it for destruction. We can adapt it for healing, for growth, for life. The memorial ceremony on Luna drew representatives from across the galaxy. 18,000 names covered the black wall. Every human who died stopping the Zarkonians. Elder Xelnaga spoke at the dedication. These warriors died protecting people they never met, species they never knew existed. That is the highest form of courage. Families of the fallen received messages from worlds they had never heard of. Thank you letters from civilizations that would have been next. Children's drawings from species that still had children because of human sacrifice. Captain Steve Johnson, promoted after the boarding action, trained mixed-species Marine units. Humans taught close combat while learning alien tactics. Trust grew through shared training and common purpose. Remember, he told each new class, we fight only to protect, never to conquer, never for glory, only to preserve life. The corrupted council members faced trial. Most received exile, but 3 who had directly helped plan genocides were imprisoned for life. The trials revealed the Zarkonians had been eliminating species for over 5,000 years. Young species began reaching out to Earth directly. They saw humanity as protectors who understood their vulnerability. Trade increased. Cultural exchanges flourished. Earth's influence grew not through force, but through earned respect. Jake walked through his new command ship, the GTS Guardian. His crew included humans, Altarians, Danebian engineers, and others. Above his captain's chair hung a simple motto: never again shall the innocent stand alone. Lieutenant Amy Turner, now his second in command, studied star charts showing developing civilizations. 3 species will achieve spaceflight within the next decade, all in formerly Zarkonian-controlled space. They'll make it now, Jake said confidently. We'll make sure of it. The Zarkonian threat had ended, but other dangers existed. Aggressive empires still pushed boundaries. Pirates still raided weak systems, but now they faced something new. A coalition willing to fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves. President Santos met with the Earth Defense Council for the last time before stepping down. Her term was ending, but her legacy was secure. We gave our soldiers an impossible choice, she reflected. Strike first or watch our children die. They chose to bear that burden. Now we must honor their sacrifice by preventing others from facing the same decision. The blood-smeared ships were finally cleaned, but they kept their scars as reminders. In Council historical archives, they were labeled the ships that changed everything. Humanity had arrived at the Galactic Council with blood on their hands and truth in their hearts. They left as guardians of a new age, where silence in the face of evil was no longer acceptable. The innocent would never stand alone again.